I very much support our master plan. I've been a leader in the birth of the bicycle movement, or rebirth of it here in Los Angeles, in East Hollywood, where the Bicycle Kitchen is, if you've ever heard of that, was kind of where we first dreamt up Ciclavia, which I'd like to do monthly and bring to West LA also. I know we will be shortly, but a way where we can close down streets. And we also have to remind drivers, all of us that drive too, that bicycles have as much under our vehicle code of a right to be in lanes as cars do. And I really do support the legislation that unfortunately passed but was vetoed by the governor of having a safe passage space for bicyclists so they can freely know that they're not going to get hit by a door or something opening along the way. But I will continue to accelerate what's happening. It's a wonderful time for bicyclists. There's so many more new lanes that are happening. And lastly, I want to make sure that bicycles connect with our transit better. So bigger bike racks for more bikes on our buses, more bike they call them hotels, where people could park their bike and get on a thing like the Expo line. Only one of the stops at Expo line is really bicycle ready. It's like, that should have been every single stop along the way. And figuring out better connectors to get to our main transit lines for bicycles. So bike paths aren't just about transiting through a city, but also getting to the main lines. And I'd love to see a couple streets that we might turn, like Pasadena just did, into bike-only streets. Imagine an entire street that would just be a bike-only street. And I work with communities to do that.
The schools in Westchester and Playa del Rey have experienced a flight in which residents have decided to send their children to schools elsewhere, like the South Bay schools or private schools. What would you do to bring the children of residents back to our neighborhood schools?
Well, as a former teacher, this is something that's personal. My grandmother was a public school teacher as well. I know how important that classroom is. I'm very proud to have the support of our classroom teachers in this race. And to me, education has to start with a school that is the center of a community. Now, we hear that a lot, but judge me by my record, not just the rhetoric. I've used city funds for the first time in our schools. In my own district, when I got elected, in Mount Washington, in northeast Los Angeles, there's an elementary school that never had a cafeteria, it had never had an auditorium, and it never had a library. You can imagine trying to go to a school like that as elementary school. And they asked me if I would help build that. And I was a candidate, and it sounded like a good idea, and I said yes. And then suddenly I got elected, and I had to figure out how to do it. So I got some community development block grant monies, anti-poverty dollars from that the city gets. And I went to whoever's in charge of that, and I said, I'm going to spend this on a library, auditorium, cafeteria in Mount Washington. And they said, are you kidding me? Councilmember Garcetti, we don't do things in the schools. That's for the school district. Let them figure it out. They've got a larger budget than us. And I said, well, this money's supposed to go towards community centers, anti-poverty work. Why would I build a community center 12 blocks from a school when I could do it in a school, unless it's about our ego in the city, unless we want our names to be on that community center? And that started 7 different projects that we've done, from building ball fields, like at Belmont High School, where we used to have a 75% dropout rate. A 16-year-old girl came up to me when we opened the brand new ball field there. She said, thank you so much, Mr. Garcetti. I said, of course, it's your taxpayer money too, but why? She said, well, we used to have what they call a football field, but it was just a bunch of dirt. And I'll never forget what she said to me. She said, it made me feel like dirt. And my grades were going down, and I was going to drop out. But this year I saw this beautiful green field with downtown behind it, a track that looked like the Olympics, and I joined a sports team, and my grades are up, and I'm going to graduate, Mr. Garcetti. I have 7 schools now that have increased by more than 200 points, some as much as 300 points API. So in other words, the city has to get back involved with schools. It's not about governance. We should be less obsessed with governance and the worst teachers, and start thinking about building good schools and the city playing a role in that too. I will leave that as mayor.
Okay, well, it's really time to do your closing statement. So I'm wondering if you could somehow incorporate this closing statement, because it's a very important okay? You have 3 minutes.
What is it?
None of us could read that one, so you have to skip that one. I mean, I think the person who wrote it, I think, left, because we don't know what that word is.
Gotcha, okay.
No, I don't know.
Monetize. It's monetized public space for profit. Penmanship matters. Monetize. Okay. Well, thank you all for time. I see a room full of activists who have worked on issues of homelessness and the environment in our schools, on equality, on those values that we stand up for and that we care about. And I come before you as the person who wants to be mayor, not because I've dreamt of the title of being mayor, but because this is a moment for Los Angeles, to not have to settle between vision and know-how, but to be able to have both. Look at the heart of this city, in which I tackled some of the toughest issues we ever faced. Hollywood, our most famous neighborhood, which 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you wouldn't have spent any time with, you wouldn't have brought visitors to, that has turned around, increased, adding jobs, #1 in job growth, #1 in new business receipts growth in the last 2 years in the midst of a recession. Communities like Silver Lake and Echo Park that used to be full of graffiti and gang crime that have now roared back as examples of what livability can be in this time. During budget crisis, facing square on issues like pension reform collaboratively with our unions, leading those negotiations to take us away from what was projected to be $1 billion deficit this year. There was only $200 million gap that we closed because we actually worked hand in hand together. In contrast to other states where there's walkouts and lockouts, to me that's a sign of failure. You need, as the next mayor, somebody who has a proven track record of getting things done at the neighborhood level, of passing legislation that not only has local significance, but that's garnered national attention, and that makes City Hall work again, that returns a phone call, that answers a question, that makes you feel like your taxpayer money is being spent responsibly, that takes a smartphone app so you can take a picture of a pothole or a graffiti in my district right now, as you can, and text it to us in 20 seconds instead of trying to figure out the right number and waiting on hold for 20 minutes just to report a pothole. And then later on you can see that you set in motion something that's transformed you from being a passive recipient of government to an active participant in turning around this city. We can do the big things. We can end homelessness. We can protect our environment. We can make sure that we have transit options and that we can move forward in West Los Angeles so that we're not stuck in our cars all day long, struggling. As I mentioned my mom before, if she only drive between 10 and 2, it's so bad. But there are ways forward, but it will require strength. Not just identifying problems, which is easy, but solving problems. Not just saying that here's potential savings, but actually enacting savings that are there. At the same time, getting off of defense and starting to play offense on the values that we care about. Social justice, our environment, decent housing, good schools. That's the mayor that I will be. It would be my honor in this race to have the endorsement of West LA Democratic Club. To me, it is this level where we begin to make change. It doesn't happen in Washington. It doesn't happen in Sacramento. It happens right here, right now. And as mayor, I am confident that our best days are still ahead of us. I've seen it on the streets of my district as president of the city council and as acting mayor over 36 times. Now it is time for us to take these next 8 years and write the best chapter of our history. I'd be honored to earn your support, and I hope I incorporated it. I won't monetize public space for profit. Thank you.